Boarding in.
Every Friday afternoon before our family Sabbath, I have the same experience. I stop by the grocery store to pick up food for our day of rest and worship. And as I wait in the checkout line, I am caught between a war of desire in my chest. To my left is a rack of magazines with beautiful celebrities, airbrushed to digital perfection. As a guy, I have to admit, Harry Styles is the new gold standard. Timothy Chalamet is stealing the hearts of Gen Z the world over. Michael B. Jordan is just next level handsome. And underneath their pictures are articles that read something like lose 10 pounds in a week, or 5 steps to washboard abs, or intermittent fasting, the secret to health and longevity, etc. But then to my right is another magazine rack. This one is covered in pictures of food: 20 best restaurants in Portland, 10 best local beers, 7-layer chocolate cake. And on top of both magazine racks are a shelf of sweets and salty snacks, just like inches away from my hunger. In that period of waiting in line, I'm torn by what David Bennett called a war of loves, a kind of civil war of desire inside me, in my own chest, between my desire to look like Ryan Gosling, who, by the way, is aging very nicely, and my desire to eat a quesadilla with guacamole and sour cream. Two desires which are mutually exclusive and both feel very authentic and true. So, what do? Easy. I buy the Men's Health magazine and the chocolate peanut butter cups because they are organic, and I read about Ryan's ab routine while I munch on the chocolate. I'll start tomorrow. That's a comical example that a lot of us can relate to, but it's symptomatic of a much deeper kind of disease in our soul. Again, as Martin Luther King Jr. once said, inside all of us, there is a civil war raging on the battlefield of our desire. The human heart is beautiful and it's mysterious, and it's full of desires that are complex and often contradictory. For example, I want to love my 3 children well, and I want to raise them up to follow Jesus and reach their full potential. I also just want to close the door to my room after a long day of work and watch TV and let them sort out their own annoying problems. Or I want to be a generous man and free from kind of that cancer of greed and content with what I have. But I also have a bunch of new stuff that I want that I don't really need, but I want it really bad. I want to go out and shop and buy it now. I want to experience God in prayer. I also want to stay up late watching TV and sleep in and just do my own thing in the morning. So my heart is this mixed bag of desire. But to make things even more confusing, the cultural messaging that we receive constantly from the wider world is be true to yourself, follow your heart, you do you. Don't let anybody else tell you what to do. Western culture is built around the idea that our internal desires or authentic selves are the best roadmap we have to the good life, not external authority or tradition or wisdom, be it from God or scripture or the church or our culture. But this raises the follow up question: which self am I to be true to? Which self is authentic to me? As the psychologist David Benner put it, what we call I is really a family of many part selves. Now, that might sound kind of like psychobabble, but it's actually a brilliant insight into the felt experience of being human. What he means is that we're all full of all sorts of desires. Some of them are good and noble and lead us to life and peace and freedom and to really God's true nature. They're God's desiring in our own desire. But other desires are evil and base and lead to compulsion or full on addiction and fear and a kind of death. The New Testament and the Christian tradition as a whole has a very sophisticated view of the heart and its inner dynamics of desire. Unlike modern culture, which has one category for desire, our authentic selves, the New Testament has two categories for desire, the spirit and the flesh. Take a look with me at Paul's language to the church in Ephesus. As for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world and of the ruler of the kingdom of the air, the Spirit, who is now at work in those who are disobedient. All of us also lived among them at one time, gratifying the cravings of our flesh and following its desires and thoughts. Notice in that one paragraph, Paul's trifecta of enemies: the world, you followed the ways of this world; the flesh, gratifying the cravings of our flesh; and the devil, the ruler of the kingdom of the air. That's referring to the devil himself. This is where early apprentices of Jesus picked up the framework of the three enemies of the soul. Ancient as they were, the first Christians were wide awake, much more so than many of us are today, to the fact that our fight is, again, to quote Paul, not against flesh and blood, as Paul writes just a few chapters later. It's not against Russia or ISIS or Chinese digital communism, much less against Democrats or Republicans. It's against something far deeper in the human condition. We covered our first enemy in the last session, the devil. Next up on the docket is enemy number 2, the flesh. Remember, we said the devil's primary strategy is deceitful ideas that play to disordered desires. His lies aren't random, like, hey, you, Elvis is alive and hiding in Mexico. No, they play to some deep ache in the human heart that is bent in the wrong direction or even wounded. They sound more like, hey, you're not happy in your marriage? You two are just a bad fit for each other. But if you were to divorce him or her and marry someone else, then you would be happy. This is just as flagrant of a con, yet only a few conspiracy theorists fall for the first lie. A lot of us fall for the second kind. The word Paul and the writers of the New Testament used for this aspect of our inner desire that is so easily manipulated by the devil's lies is our flesh. Now, this is strange language to our modern ears. What exactly did they mean by the flesh? The word Paul used in Greek is sarx. It's translated into English as flesh or sinful passions or sinful nature or corrupt desire. Basically, the flesh is our base, primal, animalistic drives for self-gratification, especially pertaining to sensuality, as in our drives for sex and food, but also to pleasure in general, as well as our instincts for survival, domination, and the need for control. Desires that are in all of us, in spite of the humanistic kind of atmosphere around us, constantly telling us that we're good just the way we are. We all know that we have these desires we don't know what to do with. Because they don't match the cultural messaging that we hear all the time, we often feel scared to death that the truth will come out, or we feel a deep shame over our own heart. But the New Testament is incredibly open about the dark underbelly of the human heart. And we're invited to explore it with searing honesty under the loving gaze of God's compassion. But the fact is, inside all of us is an invisible but real war in the deepest part of our being between our flesh, this animal part of our brain and our body, and the spirit, the deep desire in all of us for God himself, for goodness, to become people of agape. But what so few people realize is that our strongest desires are not necessarily our deepest desires. What I mean by that is in the moment of temptation, when the raging kind of fire of desire is in your body and your flesh, whether it's something as simple as to eat more of that chocolate cake or to make a condescending comment about your coworker or to objectify another person with lust or just to buy something you don't need, it doesn't matter what it is. In that moment, that temptation, that gravitational pull in your heart, it feels overwhelming and almost all-powerful. But those desires are not actually the deepest, truest desires of your heart, your authentic self. They don't come from the deepest layer in your soul. Come to quiet before God. Take a few deep breaths. Let the deepest desires of your heart come to the surface. What is it that you want? What is it that you really want down deep? My guess is if you go deep enough, you ache for God himself, to live in his love, to yield to his gentle peace, to let your body become a place where his will is done on earth as it is in heaven, and to become a person of love, just like Jesus was. That's a gift of the Spirit at work in your spirit. For all the talk about how human beings are animals and morality is just a social construct and how we need to be true to ourselves, ironically, it's still generally agreed upon, whether you're religious or secular, that to live a good life, you must become a good person. I've never once read an obituary that said he really got a lot out of his Tinder subscription, or this girl knew how to party and eat, drink, and be merry. Of course not. When people die, we honor the best parts of their character: love, loyalty to family and friends, humility, generosity, sacrifice, all of which required the denial of their flesh and their disordered desires. My point is simply this: our deepest desires, usually for God himself and to become people of goodness and love like God. These desires are often sabotaged by the stronger kind of surface level body-based desires of our flesh. This is exacerbated by a culture where the widespread wisdom of the day is to follow our heart and to follow all of our desires that are true to us, not to crucify them. In reality, be true to yourself, at least without nuance, is some of the worst advice anybody could ever give you. This is where Jesus called to take up your cross and deny yourself and follow me. It's the secret to life and freedom and peace and joy, as heretical as that line sounds to our kind of modern ears. The ethicist Robert C. Roberts had this observation: we have been led to feel that the self is sacrosanct, just as in an earlier time it was thought never fitting to deny God. So now it seems never right to deny oneself. Here's the theologian Cornelius Plantinga. He observed something very similar. In such a culture as ours, the self exists to be explored, indulged, and expressed, but not disciplined or restrained. But the self that Jesus is calling us to deny and even put to death on the cross isn't our authentic, true kind of self that we are before God. It's our flesh, which is actually keeping us from actualizing our true self in God. The irony of our cultural moment is the more we give in to the cultural messaging to follow our heart and do our own thing and be true to ourselves, the more we devolve to the lowest common denominator. We devolve to our animal appetites, greed, lust, domination, ego, narcissism, fear, all of which are remarkably similar. Sin makes us the same. But the more we deny our flesh and follow Jesus, the more unique we become as we grow into our true self in God. A saint is the most original soul you will ever see. In the book, I explore the New Testament solution to the problem of the flesh, these desires that all of us have in our body. And the solution is not willpower. It's not just trying harder to not sin. Have a Bible study, read what sins are on the list of not okay, and then just try really hard to not do them. No, how is that working for you? It's not working for me at all. No, the solution is the Spirit's power, not willpower. It's habituating your heart into obedience to Jesus through practices or, again, spiritual disciplines that enable you to yield and surrender all of your heart, the good part of it and the fleshly desires in it, over to God. And in turn, to receive from him his empowering presence by the Spirit to overcome sin and live in mind and in body and in relationships to others in freedom and peace. This is the good news, the gospel, that through apprenticing under Jesus and opening your inner woman or man to the power of his Spirit, you can be set free from the deceptive ideas that play to our disordered desires, from the lies we have come to believe that hold our heart in bondage to sin. We can come to peace, not through getting all that we want in our flesh. That is a losing strategy, but through getting what the deepest part of us wants, freedom from all that we want in our flesh. There is, pay attention to older, godly people that you know in your life or community who have died to self over many years or decades. There is a deep happiness and contentment that comes over the disciple of Jesus who has crucified their flesh and come alive in God. And that happiness is available to you. All you have to do is take up your cross, deny yourself, and follow Jesus.